Don Global presents the DG Recruit podcast on everything headhunting and recruitment. Achieve the life and career you envision. What's up, game changers? It's your host, Don, founder of Don Global, the headhunting and career coaching company helping you achieve the life and career you envision.
In today's podcast episode, I am going to walk you through the 5 mistakes senior agency recruiters make. And this podcast is going to help you see if you do any of these things. So stay tuned and listen to all 5. At the end of the podcast, there will be an extra bonus tip. So make sure to see, are you doing any of these following mistakes? Let's get right into it. The first mistake that senior agency recruiters do. Now, actually, before I even jump into the first mistake, a senior agency recruiter, to me, the definition of that is somebody who has a decent success rate. Like, they're not struggling. They're not like, oh my God, I've never done any placements. I don't know what's happening. This might not be. No, I'm talking about like true senior agency recruiters, as in you've been in the business for at least 1 or 2 years. You are at least a top 75 percentile biller. So you're not someone who's like at the bottom 20% wrong. Just because you have the years under you and that somebody deems you employable does not make you senior, because your achievements are not senior. A senior agency recruiter, to me, is somebody who has won some accounts, that definitely knows how to speak to clients, that knows how to headhunt candidates, knows how to manage the entire candidate process. So this isn't somebody that needs to sit around and ask someone, where should I be finding these candidates? No, senior agency recruiters know how to do this. So assuming you're a true senior agency recruiter who knows what you're doing and are decently successful, that you had a couple years of success where you're billing at least 200 to 300 on a perm desk. If you're contract, at least you're doing 7 to 8 weekly GP, maybe fine 6 to 7 weekly GP if we must, but you have a proven track record. Dare I say, you might be actually very successful. You might be the top 1 to 10 people in your entire firm. This is, to me, what a senior agency recruiter is like. This is someone who isn't effing around, trying to figure out, what is my future career? No, they know. They are an agency recruiter. So that is the type of person I'm talking about. I'm not talking about someone who's looking to go internal. I'm talking about a true agency recruiter. Now that I've beat that dead horse over and over again, let's jump back into the 5 mistakes that people make. So number 1, these senior agency recruiters, they get complacent and they accept everything at their agency as the way it is. This is the biggest mistake that I personally suffered from. I thought that I work at the only agency that counts. Dare I say the only agency at all? Like, that is how ignorant that I was when I started off in this industry and I started experiencing success. I thought, well, I must be the only one doing this. Meanwhile, there are millions of agencies out there, millions. And they all do different things, and they all run their business differently, and they all make money. So this is the first mistake, is feeling that you are comfortable, that, our agency's the best. We're the best at what we do. We pay the best. You assume that everything is great. And obviously, there's always something else better out there. I thought, $215,000 is a good amount for a 25-year-old. Turns out, if I did that billing elsewhere, I probably could have made $350,000 to $400,000 because of how commissions work and commission splits. So because you're complacent, you think your firm is hot shit. You think your firm is awesome. You're not thinking that there are people doing it better out there. They're paying people better, that have better work-life balance, that have better culture. All the crap that I talk about, I just deemed it just normal. This is how the industry is. No, it's not. It's not normal to have bad things happen to you at work and for you to take it every single day when it's literally illegal, some of the things that are happening to you, right? Like, I just think, well, because it happens, I bet it happens everywhere. Yeah, I'm sure it happens elsewhere, but it also might not happen at other places. So what it is sort of like a Stockholm syndrome. Like, you get used to the abuse that you are suffering at your current firm because you're just frankly complacent. That's what it comes down to. You're scared of the unknown. You have this ego and this arrogance to think that your firm does it best. And therefore, it's like this toxicity that feeds into itself, which is why you don't look externally, right? Because you're so busy thinking, A, we're the best, B, nowhere else is better. Everyone has the same issues, when literally, realistically, the answer is no. There are firms out there that don't have rampant sexual abuse happening and harassment happening. There are firms out there that don't have toxic people working there, that are a-holes that you have to put up with, that you don't like dealing with them. There are companies that are much smaller where you don't have to deal with people you don't like at work. There are companies with better managers. There are companies with better splits. People just assume that their firm is the best, and it's not worth looking. So this is the number one mistake that they have. So what happens is you become a victim of circumstance because you are at the same company and you think that your firm is the best, and or you are complacent. You don't have a career plan. You're literally at the beck and call and at the behest of your recruitment firm. Now, I have personally experienced this yet again, but I've also talked to a ton of agency recruiters because I am a rec to rec. And agency recruiters tell me this all the time. They're like, I just do what my company tells me to. The company tells me to get promoted, I go and get the promotion. The company tells me to manage, I go and manage. You live and die by the company because you yourself do not have a career plan, because you're not educating yourself on your career. You instead think that your lifeline is only your existing agency. So this leaves you a victim of circumstance. Now, number two, not only do you get complacent, a lot of senior agency recruiters make this mistake that I personally did not make, and it is getting really loosey-goosey with your money. In other words, number two, they lack financial common sense. I'm talking about my manager at the time. He rented, remember, I was in recruitment from 2011 to 2016. Back then, rent was very cheap in New York. And even at that time, this dude managed to find himself a $4,000 rental. And I'm like, dude, why? That's just financially irresponsible. And I saw that being done by so many people in my agency where they were just blowing their money, blowing it. Like on drinks, on partying. It was not unreasonable for them to have 12 drinks in one evening. 12 drinks in New York City. If any of you have grown up or lived in this area as an adult, you know how much a drink is. $20 for a cocktail, 10 to 11, I don't even know, for beer, because I don't really spend money on this type of stuff. It is a waste. And you see these people making these mistakes all the time. They spend all their money on drinks, brunches, and in that case, you're gonna be in the rat race forever. Like, forget about ever retiring. Forget about financial freedom. It's not going to happen for you, because at the rate of which you're consuming things, going on fancy schmancy vacations. I even knew colleagues who bought freaking Lamborghinis. Like, that's crazy. And they can say, oh, I lived a high life, but come on. Like, that was wasted money, right? You can say whatever you want to like console yourself for the money that you have wasted, but it's money wasted nonetheless. And most people end up regretting it. Wow, I made all this money. I literally have nothing to show for it. This is not uncommon. It is not uncommon to come across salespeople, especially, who make this type of money and don't have a cent to their name and only have a load of debt because they live a consumer-heavy lifestyle. But it's also encouraged by their recruitment firm. It's not uncommon, again, to hear managers say things like, you can afford it. Go and buy this. Go and do this. A lot of people try to convince me to move to Manhattan. And I said, no, thank you. And they said, you can afford it. You can do it. You can do it. Why? Because they wanted to trap me. And I literally heard my manager say this out loud. He said, well, if people have a high consumption lifestyle, they can't quit their job. You see what I'm saying? And I was thinking, bro, that's not going to be me. I'm going to be retired. And I was retired at 28. So this is classic. Do not fall into the same mistake of what many agency recruiters do. Once they make a couple dollars, once they get the $30,000, $60,000 commission check, they blow it. They forget about taxes, first of all. You know how much taxes impacts your net rate of return from the hours that you work? And so I have this one tip for you if you need help with your finances. Every single dollar you earn is taxed at least 40% at our level, because we're making big money and we're getting taxed at the highest rates, and we're earning commission income. Yes, it's tax income withheld, and you'll get it back next filing season, but Uncle Sam has your money for now. But so that way, every dollar you earn, you're earning actually 60 cents on the dollar. The rest goes to Uncle Sam. Then not only are you only earning 60 cents on the dollar due to taxes. Every dollar that you are spending is truly double because you're using after-tax money. Easy math, 50%, right? So every dollar that I spend, I actually had to earn $2 to spend that $1. So when I look at a item, this is not $2 at the grocery store. This is actually $4. I had to earn $4 to pay for this one thing. So every drink that you're drinking for $20 is actually $40 that you had to earn to pay for the $20 drink. Think about that. That should scare you every time you decide to shell out, because that is money wasted. It's truly money wasted. I mean, I could talk about wasting money for hours and how not to do it, but it is a hard habit to get into, to be frugal, to be, cost conscious. But I see the majority of agency recruiters living terribly as it relates to their finances and really having no real net worth. And that is why they keep working and there's no end in sight. So this is the problem. Don't fall into having this problem. It's not really production related. But the next tip is number 3, they quit production. Now, there's a huge asterisk to this. If your career strategy revolves around you being a lifer, and what do I mean by lifer? Exactly what it sounds like. Somebody who works at the same recruitment industry for in agency for 20 years. That is a lifer. I know a lot of lifers. I met a lot of lifers and I see lifers on the internet all the time. So they work at the same agency for 10 plus years. That to me, that person's on their route to being a full-on hardcore lifer. Unless you want to be a lifer for life, you need to be producing because nobody else needs lifers. When that lifer loses their job, they're going to have to see if they're going to be impacted by ageism, because we don't really need people sitting around to manage. Recruitment companies have managers and they're usually coming up from internally. So that therefore the lifer, right? The lifer has a career plan because there are companies that need to hire and grow their staff into management positions, in which case they need lifers, right? So you as a producer at a recruitment company, you have a couple decisions of how you want to progress your career. And personally, I did not want to be a lifer. I don't want to be a lifer. I don't want to be working forever, first of all. Number 2 is I don't really like managing. So this is another issue. A lot of people just decide that managing is somehow easier when it's not necessarily easier. There's a humongous debate on this because there are a lot of people that you have to manage that might be out of your control. You don't get to really dictate who is in your team. So you could be just stuck with a bunch of underproducers that you have to try to turn basically shit into gold, right? You have to slap so much lipstick on that pig, but there's pigs, right? So this person's never going to really be successful. So the lifer strategy, unless you're totally comfortable with being a lifer, you have to produce, right? Production is how you stay valuable as a person in a sales industry. The minute you stop producing, your value to a firm greatly decreases because you don't really know how to win accounts. You don't really know how to build a lot of money, right? So this is a problem and it limits you from career opportunities. The person who's never, ever going to be out of a job, it's the rainmaker. The rainmaker is never going to be out of a job. Who will be out of a job? The person who will be out of the job is the management level. These people were violently let go of the workplace and they constantly have to go and find to do something else because they find it hard to get another management job at a recruitment firm, right? These people are playing with fire because their job is less desirable from an employer's perspective. Why do I need to hire a manager from a different company when I got tons of internal people that could manage for me? You see what I mean? So the lifer strategy, if you're not going to be a lifer, you got to stay production. So don't get bamboozled and stop producing easily, because the minute you stop producing, your value to a future employer does get impacted. It definitely does get impacted. And it also gives you a psychological problem in your head, which is well, I used to produce. I don't produce anymore. Am I still going to be good at it? It's just one of those things that once you stop practicing, you just can't expect yourself to be as good as you were in your heyday. That's why it's important to stay hands-on in the sales world. And that's why a lot of top billers who are managers, who are bosses, still produce to this day. All right. So number 4, this is another mistake that I see senior agency recruiters make, is that they are not the best at sales and cold calling. They might have won a decent account And this only applies to certain people. Certain people are always cold calling, are always amazing at sales. But I'm talking specifically about people who just coasted on one or two key accounts. There are people like this at a recruitment agency where they have a good year because they happen to land one whale. And that whale was good enough for 1 or 2 years. But come year 3, that whale has left the building. The whale has dried up. The whale has washed ashore and is now dead, and people are picking its innards for the valuable stuff that they make perfume out of. The whale is dead. What do you do now? Now you need to go and sell. Now you need to do cold calling again. Now you need to do BD again, business development. A lot of senior agency recruiters, because they got complacent, going back to tip number one mistake is that because they're complacent, they are not keeping sharp on their sales skills, and they're not trying new things. They're not hitting the phones. They're not hitting their KPIs. They're just not doing it enough, which is bad for your career. I also know many senior agency recruiters who have been in the business for 2 to 3 years, but they've never really cold called and won new accounts specifically. A lot of people, when they start their career as agency recruiters, they only recruit. That's half the job. They don't know how to talk to new clients. They don't know how to drive conversations from nothing. They don't know how to handle a client meeting from scratch, a cold client meeting in which they're going to visit the client by themselves. They don't know how to host clients' events. They don't know how to put them together. These are all knowledge lack areas. These are all areas that very, very successful agency people know how to do. So if you are one of those senior agency people that look good on paper and have succeeded in your career at your current firm, but you have never done any of these other sales activities and or really can't call yourself an expert cold caller or an expert business developer or an expert cold email writer, you cannot progress to the highest levels of this agency world. You can't be an agency owner. Like, these are things that you really need to have experience doing. So that is a humongous suggestion for people who are in the agency world and have only done a certain proportion of the recruitment job. They have not sold, they have recruited, they have not sold. You're missing, again, half of the job. So that is another humongous area that I really think people are missing out on when they're complacent and they're working at the same agency for a very long time. They are not pushing themselves to learn new skills. Number 5 is very much going to be talking about social media. There are still way too many senior agency recruiters that have no real online presence, and they just don't believe in it. They don't want to do it. They're like, I can survive without it. And no doubt that's true. But what happened to working smart? What happened to having the internet sell for you? I mean, this has been around for now 20 years, this education, right? So why are you so obstinate that you're not trying to use the internet to sell for you? We have all of these free tools, literally LinkedIn, video, TikTok, like Instagram. They're all free tools that all you can do is sell yourself to your market, specifically on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge. LinkedIn is where so much activity is happening. So many clients are on LinkedIn. So many candidates are on LinkedIn. Wouldn't it be working smarter if you're marketing to those people before you cold call them? So I'll never forget this one guy that I was trying to coach and saw no future in. He was very much of the mindset of, I don't have to do content. And then so I asked him, so what are you saying to people? He's saying, I'm the best at what I do. I'm the best. I said, okay, so you're supposedly to yourself, according to yourself, you are the best. According to the internet, you are nobody. You don't count. You don't even rank. You have no clout. You have no clout on the interwebs, on the web. You don't have anything on the World Wide Web. So how can someone actually conceivably believe you if you say you're the best? But there's nothing on the internet that says that. So it's like saying, I have the best cheesecake in the world. I'm the only one saying that. Nobody on the internet is saying that. I'm not even saying it on the internet. I'm calling people, telling them that I'm the best cheesecake, but there's literally nothing about me and my cheesecake on the internet. We live in a digital world, guys and gals. This is the 21st century. We're deep into it now. We're a quarter of the way into the first century of the 21st century. So we got to get with the program. A lot of people who are senior are not even touching or scratching the surface of the social media stuff. And especially if you own your own agency or if you're a senior leader within your agency, you have no excuse. You are the face of the brand. So as long as you're the face of the brand, you have got to put yourself out there. So that number 5, that one's critical. Now on our website, DG Recruit, there's a whole course on social media marketing that Grace put together. Another very cool thing that is going on, Grace and I are putting together a in-person training, high-end in-person coaching all day with you and me and Grace. We are going to be going through a ton of curriculum, a ton of content all around agency recruitment, sales, client management, contract negotiation, literally everything and anything that has to do with recruitment and sales techniques for specifically agency people. So that's dropping in January. That's happening in January. So we'll send the information soon. But if that's something you're interested in, make sure to reach out to either Grace or me, because we can at least start putting you on the communication channels. It's going to be limited spots because it's going to be in New York. We only have so much bandwidth. So it's going to be small group coaching. It's not going to be that many people. We haven't decided exactly how many yet, but probably no more than 15 people. And it's all going to be, again, high end, one-on-one, lots of like group activities, individual activities, all to train you to get up to speed on sales and recruitment. Okay, now bonus tip. Let's talk about the last mistake, the bonus mistake that a lot of senior agency recruiters make. And everything I've said up to now, I have made these mistakes, which is why I'm calling it out. All of these mistakes I have made. So because I've been there, done that, I know what people are doing as a mistake. Because at the senior level, it's not about, do you know how to do a, client closing or candidate closing call? You know how to do it. You've done it a few times. You know what it is. You've gone through the gauntlet. You know what it is. The hard part, I think, as senior agency recruiters, especially if you are a top biller, especially if you are a global top biller, where you're ranking in the top 10, you will likely suffer from what I call a big ego. And what I absolutely have, a big ego. You, especially if you're top 1, top 2 of an entire company, it is without doubt unsurprising if you are stubborn, because those things have helped you become successful. So this bonus tip of the mistakes that senior agency recruiters make is that they're stubborn. They're stubborn and they think they know it all. This could be someone who's 2 years in the business. This could be someone who's 30, 35 years in the business. I have spoken to recruitment owners who think they know it all. They literally think they know it all. And they'll tell me things like, you don't know what you're talking about. I know about agency recruiting for recruiters. I'm like, you don't run a rec to rec. There's no way you could possibly know my market the way I know it, because you run your own agency doing something entirely different, like recruiting for technology or something else. You know what I mean? So you might be a subject matter expert in your own space, but you're not a subject matter expert as it relates to other things. And that's the trouble. And that's the challenge that a lot of very successful people suffer from, is that they don't have the neutrality of the ego to say, actually, there are things that I don't know. There are things that I would benefit from learning. They don't believe that. They think they know everything because they're like, well, I billed $1 million last year. I know everything there is to know. I've made millions of dollars in this industry. I know everything there is to know. First of all, things are changing over time. Not everything stays static. So the issue here is that is why a lot of people haven't adopted the social media stuff, because they're like, I know everything. I just can call people and it'll work. And I'm like, no doubt, calling is still a big part of recruitment. Yes, it is. I will never be one to say no to that. But you have to understand that working smart looks a lot different today than it looks even when I started in the industry in 2011. Had I done more of the things I'm suggesting to people today, I would be in an even more powerful position. And I'm sad that I did not start creating content until very late into my recruitment career. And a lot of people missed out on hearing all these amazing things I was learning in real time when my recruitment career was starting in 2011. I did not start experimenting with content until 2016. And I did not really start putting myself out there until like 2018. So a lot of these things is like, you don't know until you've been there. And so I hope that this podcast has given you a little insight into maybe some of the things that you might be missing out on, certain things that you need to do better, because you don't want to make the same mistakes that so many other people in our industry at this senior level have made. And so I hope this gives you some food for thought.